The 60 new superintendents.
And they're not all elected.
No, sir. I think 22, Sam's here somewhere. 20 of those are appointed.
20 of those, and we still have November elections. It's questionable to some.
We still have names pending in much.
Okay. What is our average statewide pupil-teacher ratio? Do we know that?
Grace, is that in our material somewhere? I don't know that I know that, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared that, Chairman.
Well, my question would be, if that average pupil-teacher ratio has been fluctuated over the last few years, and how it compares nationally?
It's going to go up. We would recognize with what's happened with the budgets, those numbers have increased over the past few years. And again, it would depend on where you compared yourself to. If you were comparing Mississippi to North Carolina, you're going to see a much lower teacher ratio in a state like North Carolina where there are more resources. It's probably going to track the resources fairly closely.
Well, do we have what we consider to be not a perfect, but a real good pupil-teacher ratio that we should look at, or is that something that we shouldn't even worry about?
Well, I think if you ask any teacher in the state, they're going to tell you the number of students in their classroom makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. I could tell you numbers that I would be comfortable with, but they would not be numbers that those individuals would be comfortable with. So, because it'd be different. Because I come at the administrative side, I do think it does make a difference. But it doesn't make a difference necessarily on the academic side as much as it makes a difference in terms of the total child and working with that child and keeping that child motivated and keeping that child advancing through so you don't have a dropout. If you were asking me, the greatest peril of increasing class size becomes less attention to the individual needs of children and more of a risk of dropout at some point in time. Or risk of failure, which results in dropout, would be a better description.
But I guess also depend on the subject matter.
It does.
What they're teaching. Do we have an average of what it would look like that each school district is made up of local, state, and federal monies, of how that breaks out?
We can prepare that for you. What you're going to see, that again mirrors the communities that you're dealing with. The communities that have the local resources, you're going to see a much greater share of local funds within their budget. The districts without the resources, you're going to see a much greater share of federal funds within their budgets because they have more children that qualify for the federal dollars. The MAP became the base of what the state puts in, and you have an offset. But it's not an even offset because those districts that are receiving the federal money, which looks like they have tremendous dollars, in many cases those dollars are, as you know, earmarked within certain categories where they can be spent, and the flexibility is not there for them.
Would there be any kind of correlation in your mind of high-performing districts and their performance to low-performing districts on their percentages of local and federal monies coming in?
I've never looked at that, but I wouldn't think so. If I think about the districts right now that are the star districts in the state, what you find as a commonality there becomes more size. What you see when you look at star school districts, you do not see extremely large school districts, and I think that's more of a factor of how much individual attention you can give to children, and how you can keep up with each child individually.
I think that goes to part of what I'm fishing for. You know, one of those star districts is in my Senate district, and I'm always proud of what Enterprise is doing. And we've added one. You said, will you give us the 4-star school districts? In
4-star school districts, Pass Christian on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Petal, Hattiesburg area, Enterprise, as you said, over the eastern part of the state, and Clinton is the new and 4-star school district this year.
Do you have any idea of what the average enrollment of those districts would be?
No, sir, but they're not among the larger school districts.
Thank you very much. But I also want to say, as I said, I'm bragging on you guys, and I appreciate it. But Sam's back here, and I think the superintendents in this state have done a terrific job with the amounts of resources that we've been able to provide. So I want to say, and then it also goes down to the teachers. You know, without the teachers doing what they're having to do, I'm just proud that we're moving. It's not as fast as any of us would like, but I can see positive movement. Thank you.
And I agree, and I thank you for that. And I would be remiss if I did not say that I met with the Superintendent's Association yesterday. I talked about the Superintendent's Academy and told them that they would definitely be a part of anything that we did that focused on improving. Mr. Chairman, Governor, if it's appropriate at this point for some closing comments.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recognize our Vice Chair, Dr. Wayne Gann, for closing comments.
Thank you, Dr. Carter, Mr. Chairman. I too, on behalf of the Board of Education and the Department of Education and educators across the state, on behalf of the children, we thank you for the opportunity to come and present our budget here today. And although we are passionate advocates for quality education in this state, we fully understand the difficulties that you have as leaders of our state to divide up the amount of money needed to all the needs of this state, which is tremendous. And I might add that I think you've done a remarkable job in taking care of your task at hand. I know it's been difficult for you. Not only has it been a struggle for the state of Mississippi, it's a struggle for families and for individuals out there who are trying to deal with our economic situation today. I also think that to add to what has already been mentioned, that in addition to your remarkable job, I think it is remarkable that we've made the kinds of improvements in test scores and the achievement of school districts throughout this state in view of the negative impact of an economic downturn. And I will add that I think the long-term effect will have some devastating effect on these numbers if we don't come out of this recession in a reasonable length of time. And I would like to commend people throughout the state who are the principals, the teachers, parent-teacher organizations who stepped in and stepped up to the plate and contributed more in many cases, and it's been a collaborative effort. And I think that one of the long-term answers to the problem of Mississippi and any other state is quality education, and that's the only way we're going to remain competitive. And I think we are headed in that direction with a common core, and Mississippi one day is going to be equal to anybody else in this state of education. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Representative Hall.
Superintendent, you mentioned that books for the blind sometimes can be $20,000. We have a little bit of a challenge, don't we, in timely getting those books to requested school districts. Is that correct?
That is very valid, and what I would say to you, Mr. Chairman, is I have initiated some personnel changes based upon that. I have gone across the state and I've met with principals because one of the critical elements to us in terms of procuring textbooks for visually impaired students is lead time. If we do not have orders in around Christmas for next fall, we will not have textbooks available. So it's been a combination of factors, one of them being we're not enough lead time, and a very extremely difficult environment of getting those textbooks translated. In some cases, we put it out there and no one will submit a proposal to do the textbook. So then we're back to, can we find a substitute textbook? And then we have to initiate that process again. Those are not excuses. We are addressing the issues of having those textbooks in the hands of those children when school start. That's one of the things that I'm spending a good bit of time on right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Burnham. Thank all of you for doing such an excellent job. We look forward to working with you next legislative session.
Thank you,
sir. All right. I think public safety is up next. We'll take a 5-minute break. You're on 5 minutes. You got